These are some Odyssey background notes about Odysseus and his travels. There's three characters in the Odyssey. The first main character is Odysseus. Odysseus is considered an epic hero. His wife Penelope has to stay home and wait for his return. And then they have a son. Some people say Telemachus and some say Telemachus. Whichever you prefer is fine. With these three characters, there's three things that happen simultaneously in the Odyssey. Odysseus leaves to go fight in a war, and he takes a very long time to come home. So the first plot strand is Odysseus and his travels. Second, while he's doing that, Penelope is visited by a bunch of suitors or men who want to marry her. Penelope is told that she must remarry, but she really doesn't want to, so she tries to stall the suitors even though they're making their way into her house, eating all of her food and drinking all of her wine. And the third plot strand kind of ruins the end of the story, but Odysseus and Telemachus take on the suitors once Odysseus eventually does make it home. So Odysseus being an epic hero, what does that mean? First, you have to be larger than life. He's just very full of himself. He's very grand. He does everything in a large manner. He's very cocky and very confident. He's clever and strong. You'll see this as he takes on a lot of the gods and goddesses. He's of noble status, so he's king of Ithaca. That means he's very wealthy. And he's brave. He has to fight a lot of monsters, and he has a lot of things that come his way. But he faces them and shows no fear. There's many obstacles that he overcomes, and that also contributes to him being an epic hero. And when you think that he's not going to make it home, as I said in the previous slide, he does make it home, so he wins despite the odds being against him. Sometimes some of the gods and goddesses feel bad for him and they help him. So another characteristic of an epic hero is that they're helped by the gods or goddesses. The Odyssey is an epic poem. An epic poem is a long narrative poem about a hero's journey. If you're asked to write out this definition, it's really important that you include all of these parts. It's not a story, although it seems long and you want to call it a story. It's really a poem about the hero's journey. Often in an epic poem, there is a tragic hero. A tragic hero has several things that happen for this person. Sometimes they have something called a tragic flaw, which is the downfall. It's usually something like having too much pride, which makes them cocky, and something happens to them because of that. Hubris is actually the sin of too much pride. Odysseus definitely has this because he's an epic hero, and that contributes to it. And nostos is return home or homeward voyage. So that's going to be an important term that you want to know. One more thing to know about the Odyssey is that it begins in the middle. There's a term for this called en media res, and that means the story opens in the middle. So rather than opening with the culmination of the Trojan War and talking about that, Homer basically lets you know that everything has already happened and Odysseus is on his way home and he's having a hard time getting there. So learning about the Trojan War is something else we have to talk about before you can start reading the Odyssey. The Odyssey also opens with an invocation to a muse. An invocation is like a blessing or a prayer. This means that when the story starts, it says, "Sing in me, muse, and through me tell me the story of that man skilled in all the ways, the wanderer." So the epic poem starts off by talking about this invocation to the gods and goddesses. Everything was put forth to the gods and goddesses for support and to go over with them before anything happened. Rhapsodes is another important term. Rhapsodes are traveling poets. So remember, no cell phones, no emails, there was no technology during this time. So how would people be entertained and how would they listen to stories? Rhapsodes were traveling poets and they would go around and tell their stories. What would be the problem with this? They would forget, right? So if you play a game of telephone and you have a friend that you tell a story to and there's a chain of 10 people, somebody might change the story just to be funny or somebody else might misunderstand and then the story's misconstrued. So the problem with rhapsodes is while they were entertaining, some people might forget their stories as they traveled from land to land and the stories would be changed. Sometimes they would like to sing their song and that's why they were often referred to as the singer of tales. A few more important terms that we'll be talking about during this unit is an epithet, which is a word or phrase used to describe or characterize a person or a thing. If you were to say something along the lines of putting your name, Mrs. Sear, and then a bunch of adjectives that describe you, that would be considered as an epithet. So we will talk more about that. And epic simile. First, ask yourself what a simile is. And if you know, then you should be saying that it's a comparison that uses like or as. And an epic simile, epic means great, grand, big. So it's just an extended comparison that would probably go on for a few pages in the story. So here's a chance where you can think of your own epithet. Pick 2 epithets or adjectives that describe you and write them in a sentence. Be ready to share with your classmates. I've given you some examples that you can look over, and I want you to think of Odysseus's epithets because it's a very long narrative poem. So the author Homer did not want you to think about Odysseus, Odysseus, Odysseus every time. He wanted you to think about replacing Odysseus with the wanderer, the hero. Sometimes for Zeus, because he's in the story a lot, they would say father of gods, and you're just supposed to know that that's Zeus. So epithets often replace the main character by using an adjective to describe them. And that's why it's important to know a lot of the gods and goddesses and the things that they're responsible for and what they do, so you understand who they're talking about. So that was a little overview of some notes from the Odyssey, and now after we share our epithets, we'll be ready to start reading.